We say, I'd like, first of all, to greet Comrade Patterson, Most Honorable PJ Patterson, our guest of honor, other members of his family who are here, the party leader, Comrade Mark Golding, and from here on to adopt the protocols that have already been established. The good book tells us that man is allotted 70 years, and occasionally more. So when you can celebrate 70 in good health, you are without doubt among the blessed of the earth. Mere longevity, however, is not the basis of the accolades which we bestow on PJ on this occasion. For without doubt, PJ Patterson, over his lifetime, has made a distinguished and indelible contribution to the progress and development of the Jamaican people and of the people of the Caribbean. Specifically, we, the members of the PNP, owe him a debt of gratitude for his service to the party, for beginning with his decision to interrupt his studies in order to become an organizer for the successful national campaign of 1959, I believe it was. To the present day, PJ has been active on behalf of the People's National Party. This would make him the longest-serving activist of the PNP with 67 years of continuous service, including almost every position in the party. Parish organizer, executive member, vice president, campaign director for many campaigns, and president of the People's National Party. He has been a stalwart and the longest-serving prime minister, serving 3 consecutive terms between 1992 and 2006. Again, however, the main significance of his tenure is not its length, but rather the character of his achievements. PJ's ministerial career and his prime ministerial administrations reinforce the traditional values and reputation of the People's National Party. He helped consolidate the identity of the PNP as a people's party and as a national party, defending the sovereignty of the Jamaican people and that of the peoples of the Caribbean region. From early on as a Minister of Tourism, he sought an expanded role for Jamaican entrepreneurs at all levels of the industry, an industry which at that time was almost exclusively foreign-owned. Operation Pride remains to this day one of the most imaginative and effective programs delivering affordable housing to needy Jamaicans. Jamaica's infrastructure of highways, airports, seaports, water systems were all transformed, and Vin has mentioned some aspects of that. His role in the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas and in propelling the CARICOM single market and economy into being is well recognized, for which he has been awarded the Order of the Caribbean Community. And the list could go on. But perhaps his most salutary and lasting achievements relate to his efforts and his successes in changing the tone and texture of Jamaican politics and of Jamaican life. Maxine mentioned about his significance in helping identify, in helping consolidate the black identity in the country. And I was noticing the Calabar singers. Actually, I probably should, as the most senior JC boy here, welcome all the Calabar people, particularly here tonight. But on a serious note, I was noticing the hairstyle of the young man and saying that 50 years ago, that would not have been possible on a stage here. And it is possible not least because of the example that PJ Patterson set and his efforts. My first encounter with the young PJ Patterson was purely by chance. He's not aware of it. But a couple of us who were at UW at the time and chosen the path of rebellion heard that there was this young lawyer that was going to be appearing in the Halfway Tree Resident Magistrates Court, and that were persuaded, since we were in the Halfway Tree area, to go and take a look. And it was something to behold. This young, debonair, stylishly attired young lawyer with all the style of a young, accomplished attorney with his foot on the bench addressing the court. And you say, yeah, man, that is how you must stand up as a young youth in the late 60s. He ushered in those new times, that new confidence that was striving to be recognized in Jamaica. It is worth remembering, too, the time that he spent on lowering the levels of political conflict in Jamaica. He did this through his openness to inter-party dialogue and his refusal to be drawn into conflict, even when those who faced him on the other side wanted the conflict. He refused the conflict and chose a path of peace and collaboration that has inured to the benefit of the Jamaican body politic. He was committed not just to inter-party dialogue, but to electoral reform and to deliberate institution building institutions and supporting institutions like the political ombudsman, which should be made again, I dare say, into an independent and separate office in the country, and supporting other organizations like the National Planning Council, which provided a basis for all the stakeholders in the country to come together on matters of vital national interest, because he recognized that if we are to go forward as a country, it was going to require all hands on deck. Because of this disposition to dialogue and collaboration, he was instrumental in securing the most sustained effort at constitutional reform that the country has experienced since independence, beginning with the Constitutional Commission of 1993 and including the work and the report of the Joint Select Committee on Constitutional Reform, which reported in 1997 and which ultimately resulted in the promulgation of the Charter of Rights that is in the current Constitution. And if I dare say, despite the obvious, collapse of the current effort of constitutional reform, it had to take as its starting point the work that was done in the 1990s. And if they had paid more attention to the mode of the approach to constitutional reform, through dialogue, through discourse, through collaboration, through the recognition that it is one Jamaica that will have to move forward in matters like that, I dare say they might have gone further. Time does not permit an adequate treatment of the character of the man. His skill at strategic planning and his tactics in managing a political movement. I have a few recollections of my own. John, one of them was in going to the Ministry of Health also. And it's an example of the kind of careful planning that PJ put together in appointing his cabinets. I had indicated, having been at Jamaica House at the time, that I wouldn't mind moving to a ministry. I had in my mind a kind of the ministry that I might have wanted, but when Comrade Patterson said, well, I'm going to ask you to go to the Ministry of Health, I said, I have thought of many ministries, but the one that I have never thought of was health. I named one that I would like to go to. He said, I've already offered it to Paul Robertson. Now, Paul was my good friend, godfather of one of my children. And PJ definitely had already taken that off the table, so health it was. And I managed there the other instance, though, of the careful planning related to the Ministry of National Security. Somehow there was a CARICOM meeting in the Bahamas at around the time he and I were in the Bahamas. There had been all of this talk going on in the media about changes and national security talk in the party. I came back to Jamaica satisfied that this was not in my future, because we had spent the whole weekend, and if he had wanted to raise it, he would have raised it then. We came back to Jamaica the Saturday, went to cabinet the Monday, and PJ said, can you see me after you finish your lunch? Went to see him. He said, I'd like you to go to the Ministry of National Security. I was trying now to see if I could dodge. Could I do a thing? He says, well, could I get some time to think about it? So I intend to announce it this afternoon. I said, could I at least get to talk to my wife? He said, you could use that phone over there. So in the end, you had to just accept that duty called. Now, you have to understand the nature of PJ's planning and political management. I have seen him walk with a draft of a letter that he was sending to the leader of the opposition in the pocket, pull it out in the cabinet meeting, strike out one word, substitute another, fold it so often that it was perforated. But he wouldn't dispatch it until he was satisfied that it was exactly the draft that he wanted. That is one quality and skill that he has, among many others, his care and appreciation for the conditions of the members of his cabinet. Maxine is right, it was a rambunctious cabinet, but I dare say it was the most united cabinet that has ever existed in the history of Jamaica. His love of cricket, music are also well known, and his gifts as a raconteur, particularly of the political lore of the country. I think if there is one book, if I might suggest, sir, is to just write out those political tales that you have. It would be a guaranteed bestseller. What is certain is that Jamaica is better because of his contribution to our national life, and that the PNP has become stronger through his service. And because of this, we still say, PJ,